Okay, our opening speaker will be TK Pritchard, 3 minutes. Oh, sorry, our opening speaker will be Mira.
Thank you very much. So I'm very happy to be the first person to get to welcome all of you here this evening to the first debate of a series of debates for the AMS elections this year. I know that I'm sure all the candidates are on the same page with me, that we're all very excited to see a turnout here, and we know people are watching online. So thank you for coming out and participating in something that I know that we all care about so much. My name is Mira, Dineen, and I'm running for Vice President of University Affairs as part of Team JDL, alongside Doug Johnson for President and Tristan Lee for VP Operations. So we have an evening together to talk about our platform and our vision and where we see the AMS now, where we see the AMS going. So I wanted to start by talking a little bit about who we are as a team and how we came together and what we believe in. So Doug I actually met a few years ago. It wasn't until this year that we got to work together. He's a senator, and he is the Student Senate Caucus Chair. And last year he was the president for ASIS. Tristan, this is a better story, sorry Doug. I was actually Tristan's Gale, and I spent the whole week trying to convince him to work for Wacom, because Wacom was a really big part of my Queen's experience at that time, and he went off and applied for Common Ground. Ended up working out okay though. He was the head manager last year, and I feel like that has sort of worked out well for him and for us now together. So we came together in the fall as a team and realized that we had a lot of principles and values that we shared. One of those being that students should see the value of their student government on a regular basis, and that sort of has come throughout our platform. We have a platform with 4 pillars: enhance student life, academics, health and wellness, and student advocacy. And throughout that platform, when you read through the pillars, you really see that we've tried to develop innovative and creative tangible initiatives that students would see adding value to their Queen's experience. Another thing that we believe in strongly is that students should realize that they need to demand more from their student government. It's very possible to have a student government that delivers on tangible initiatives and prioritizes advocacy points and lobbying on behalf of students. And I think that students sometimes underestimate what the AMS can do for students. So a few years ago, an executive ran on bringing a new bus route to help enhance students' abilities to get to the train station and stuff like that. And that was a pretty big idea, and they delivered on that. So I'd like you to think critically about the options available, and when you're looking at our platform, think about what we've tried to do here: tangible initiatives and lobbying priorities. And a strong executive can deliver on both of those things. So we're committed to standing up for students, and we look forward to talking about our platform throughout this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. So like Mira, I'd like to welcome you all for coming. It's really exciting to see so many people involved and interested in their student government. My name is TK Pritchard. I am running for Vice President University Affairs as part of Team GPP. My teammates are Rico Garcia for President and Duncan Peterson for Vice President Operations. So my experience in the AMS has varied a bit over the past 4 years. I've always found myself somewhere in the student government, whether I knew it or not. I started out as part of a committee in first year. In second year, I chaired a club under the CIA and joined another committee. My third year, I chaired a committee under the Social Issues Commission and maintained being a member of another one. In my fourth year, where I am now, I am currently the Social Issues Commissioner for the AMS, and I am a drama and English student. So my team is running on a platform that surrounds being approachable, accountable, and accessible. And we believe that our platform is both realistic and responsible. We really, in terms of approachability, we really want students, any student, to be able to come into our offices and tell us what it is that they need, regardless of what faculty, what program, or who you are. We really want you to be able to walk into my office and say, you know what, TK, I got a problem, and I really want you to be able to help me. And that is something that we strive for. Further, our platform goes into areas such as mental health, different initiatives that we'll be looking at in terms of expanding the hours of the Peer Support Center, as well as the purview of the support groups that they oversee. Working to make sure that we maintain orientation as the great event that it is and to preserve our traditions. We're also looking at several sustainable projects, such as looking at the windows in our Student Life Center and looking at to switch over to sensor lights. The commissions, I'm very proud to say that my coworkers do amazing work, and we would really like to continue a lot of the initiatives that they've been working on. From the ACT, we're looking to keep helping students with SOLAS, as well as improve the marketing of the Academic Grievance Center and continue our lobbying with USA. With the CAC, again, also with Orientation Week, and we're also creating a new committee called the Committee for Creative Student Teaching and Learning, which you can read about both under there and also under the new space that we'll be creating, the new performance space. The CAA will be working to protect NAD, continuing the work that Mark and Allison have done so well this year, and making assembly more accessible and providing more resources to our clubs. Under the MAC, we'll be continuing to work with the University District and ensuring that that initiative goes forward through the marketing of SMART and looking at the possibility of creating street signs, as well as working on our job bank and working with the Employment Opportunities Coordinator. And through the SIC, we'd like to create a new special projects deputy to work on educational campaigns across the commission, and again, improving the peer support center. So we do have a variety of ideas. Our platform has many, many other ideas that you'll learn about over the next 3 days. I hope you read all of the platforms. I think everyone's put a lot of really hard work in it, and I'm proud to stand up here with all of them. So I'm excited for your questions. I can't wait, and I will try my best to give you the answers to them all.
Renaud. All right, so who am I? Why am I here? Well, my name is Sean Renaud, and I'm running for the position of VP University Affairs, alongside Jeffrey McCarthy, the presidential candidate, and Briar Snefella, the VP Ops candidate. I'm a mature student, and I'm currently in first year. I love the AMS's philosophy of allowing any undergrad to run and apply for positions within the AMS. That's the beauty of the AMS. It's for students, by students. Anyone can get involved, even you can get involved. This year, we have 3 teams running for the AMS executive. To me, this shows that students are taking notice. The current executive has done a great job at getting the AMS to be more visible to students at large, and more importantly, making students care. Together, we are Team RMS. We believe in the philosophy of for students, by students, and giving everyone an opportunity to get involved, whether it's through clubs, events on campus, intramurals, or working within the AMS. There's something for everyone. Having graduated high school in 2002, I've had the opportunity to accumulate a wide range of experience, from being in the Army to teaching overseas in China. I have also had the opportunity to become very involved in mental health awareness in the Kingston community. I am a peer support for youth at Hotel Dieu Hospital. I help facilitate a peer support group at Anguinata. I have done talks at Queen's about mental health for upper year abnormal psych classes, and I volunteer with the Queen's Clinical Education Center as a volunteer patient. I believe these experiences make me well qualified to advocate for the mental health of students at Queen's. That being said, one of our platform points is increasing support for the Peer Support Center, getting them a larger space, soundproofing, and making it a safe space that all students will feel comfortable going to when they're in need. In the working world, I've been the head of sales for the leading provider of mental health case management software in Ontario. I have also opened and run a pawn shop here in Kingston. I've worked many different jobs in customer service and finance over the last 10 years. I feel all these experiences will help me better serve students day to day in the role of VP University Affairs. I have strong interpersonal skills, and I can be highly persuasive due to my experiences in sales. I feel this will be a tremendous benefit when lobbying the administration for student interest and when working with the administration. These skills will also benefit the AMS team, as I love to work with and support my peers in any capacity that I can. I also believe in information sharing, which I think is reflected in the way we have approached our campaign. To find out more, check out our website, voterms.com, follow us on Twitter @voterms, and like us on Facebook. We are looking for discussion and opinion, and we want to hear as many students as possible share their voice. We do this with our banner, our Twitter, and in person. We have managed our campaign ourselves, and we are always personally manning our booth. I have been managing the social media side of our campaign, and I welcome any questions and feedback online. Once again, I'm Sean Renaud, Jeffrey McCarthy, Briar Snefella, and we're Team RMS. Thank you.
If you would like to ask a question, you can go up to any who's in the blue shirt on my opposite side. There's paper and pens up there. Just write out your question, please, beforehand. We'll just suggest any modifications to your question or approve it. Most likely approve it. And then you can come up and ask it. We really want to encourage questions from the audience. We do have a set of questions that I will start off with that was created by the AMS Council, but the most important questions come from students at large. So the first question is, there are currently 99 AMS student activity fees. 73 are optional, totaling $965.72. This does not include faculty society fees. Are there any features of current student fee system, such as how they are established, opt-outs, disbursements, that you think should be changed or improved? Starting with TK.
Great. Thank you for the question. It's definitely a great one, and I know we were discussing recently at Assembly how the fees, we are starting quite a few, and we're creeping up on having over 100 opt-outable fees. I think the current process I think is effective. I think there needs to be more education around the fees. I think that students go through and they don't always have the necessary information to know whether or not they do want to opt out of a fee, and I think that we need to improve that so students really do know what they're paying for. I think that's very, very important. So increasing the campaigning and the marketing that we do, letting students know what those fees are and what they represent. If I was to change anything about the way we do it, I think we need to be more clear about why we bring fees to Assembly to be approved before they get put on the ballot. It's a little confusing still as to what the role of Assembly is with those fees and why they come to us. I know in the Constitution we can decline a fee if it is going to be harmful to the student population or anything like that. But we really need to solidify what the role of Assembly is in debating those fees, why we do it, and make that clear to students. So really clarifying that as well as clarifying what students are paying for.
Mira.
Thank you for the question. To avoid being repetitive, I will say that I do agree with many things that TK just said. What I will add is I think it's important that you noted that there's 99 student fees, and I don't think we should get caught up in the big jump between 99 and 100. These student fees do support a number of student initiatives that are very important to campus that students have supported being passed as opt-outable or whatever the case is. I do think that there might be an opportunity potentially to, in terms of connecting students with information about where these fees come from, possibly working with the registrar's office to link up information on Solace to AMS policy so that students, when they're looking at their fees, would know where they're coming from. I'm not sure that that's actually the case. That's what I would add to what TK has already said.
Sean.
All right, thank you for the question. I definitely agree with both what TK and Mira have said. I believe the fees, it doesn't matter about the number of fees. It matters more about making students aware of what the fees are. So if they do want to opt out, they can. And I think that's something we can do with Solus. We can add a more descriptive, well, basically description of the fees so that students really know what they're paying for, what these 99 fees are. And I think that's the most important thing. It's not how many fees, it's making them visible so people can make a choice.
Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, our second question is, and if you have any type of question, please feel free to ask it. We want to foster healthy debate, so don't worry about it being controversial or anything like that. We want hard questions. Okay, the next question is, what do you believe constitutes the core elements or features of an effective, broader learning environment or out-of-classroom experience? What role does the AMS play in providing this? Starting with Mira.
Can you repeat the question?
Yep.
Sorry.
What do you believe constitutes the core elements or features of an effective, broader learning environment or out-of-classroom experience? What role does the AMS play in providing this?
That's an excellent question. I think that something that I know my teammates and I really do agree upon and believe strongly in is that the strength of the Queen's community really lies in the diversity of activities that happen here and the huge range of things that students get involved in here. And certainly there's many opportunities that the AMS offers, but there's many things that mean so much to students that are not part of the AMS necessarily. So I think that the AMS offers a range of activities that do appeal to a number of students, and I think that the AMS does always need to think about how we can reach out to providing opportunities to students who maybe don't currently feel that they have a place in the AMS. I think that one thing that is really central to the AMS providing opportunities is the no experience necessary hiring policy. And that really lets students get involved in a number of initiatives that enhance their student experience at Queen's and enhancing student life in general.
Sean.
Thank you for the question. I definitely agree with what Mira said about the no experience necessary policy within the AMS. I believe that's very important in getting students involved, giving them opportunities to get more out of their university experience. I also believe when it comes to out of classroom experiences at Queen's, clubs are very important. There's such a diversity of clubs here at Queen's that you can pretty much try anything you want. And I think that's something we need to make a lot more visible within the Queen's community so that people know that all these clubs are out there, where they can get involved, when they can get involved, and how they can get involved.
TK.
Thank you for the question. So I think that the AMS provides a lot of the essential out of classroom elements that you need to learn, specifically the addition of new skills and also personal growth. And to exemplify that, I'm going to share a little personal tidbit here. I came to Queen's and as a queer student, and I didn't know what I was doing, had no idea what was going on, and then I found a committee under the SIC. And through that committee, I found support, I found students who identified similarly to me, and I really was able to find a place at Queen's that felt right for me. Similarly, in the past couple years, while I was dealing with various mental health issues, I again found support in the AMS. I found from my coworkers and from various people and various resources that kind of support and that kind of personal growth that I needed. And the AMS provided that for me, and I believe that the AMS does provide that for other students through the committees that we offer, through the services that we offer, and through the clubs that we help to facilitate. The AMS can really shape your experience here at Queen's. We don't always do it right, and so sometimes we need a lot of help. That's why we need a lot of feedback. But it does provide so much more than your academics. For me, Queen's has been so much more than being in the classroom. If it had just been being in the classroom, I couldn't have stayed here. The AMS and the committees, services, and clubs that it's provided kept me at Queen's.
Would anyone? Yes. Yes, definitely.
Okay, so my question is from Rachel Shinman. My question is from Rachel Shinman and also sort of from Steve Pariser. It's like a combined one. So all of your platforms make mention of Orientation Week, and each discusses your commitment to orientation being student-run and its traditions remaining, as those are currently at risk of being lost. Seeing as years of SORB reports reaffirm the value of student-run orientation and student leadership of orientation, I would like to know exactly what part of student-run orientation and/or what traditions are at risk, who is taking them away, and what you're going to do to prevent this apparent phenomenon from taking place.
Starting with Sean.
All right, thank you for the question, Ty. All right, so basically, in terms of the traditions that they're looking to take away, I'm not fully aware of which traditions those are. I would assume they might be some of the, more dangerous traditions that I think really need to remain at Queen's, even though they, the grease pole basically is what I'm trying to say. But they do a great job with the grease pole, making sure that, there's lots of people there, it's safe, there's paramedics if anything were to happen. I don't think it's an issue, and I think, we need to keep those traditions alive here at Queen's. Also, to answer the other part of the question, who's trying to take that away from us? Again, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it has to do with the new Dean of University Affairs. I know that they are new to the position and they bring a different stance as to the old Dean. It's really something that we have to work on in terms of our relationships with the administration, and I think that that's really the most important thing the AMS can do to keep orientation alive, is to work with the administration to show them the value of keeping it student-run.
TK.
Well, thank you for the question, Rachel, Steve, and sort of Ty. So our commitment to keeping orientation student-run, as you said, is quite strong. And through our various relationships and knowledge that we have of the Senate Orientation Activities Review Board, we have come to note that the administration no longer wants to grant exemptions to the guiding document that they use called Spirit with Responsibility, and there are exemptions in it currently, and they're reviewing what exemptions they can still make. Furthermore, SORB is made up of 5 students, 4 administration, and 1 alumni member. The alumni member currently works for the administration, so that's kind of a conflict of interest, which is concerning. And with these possible looking at the exemptions again, we have concerns about activities and traditions that we would be losing. And one of them is such as slip-in slides. They were reviewing those as well. So one example as you asked for. So we really want to ensure that we are working with our student representatives on SORB so that they are going to the meetings prepared to tell the admin what it is that students want and to fight for those traditions that we care so deeply about.
Mira.
It's a very important question, something that I know means so much to so many Queen students, including obviously everyone up here and my team and myself. I think that, what I would add to what has already been said is we do think it's really important that SORB remains a Senate committee, and there's been some discussion that it might be moved under Student Affairs and not remain as a Senate committee anymore. We think that it's really important, first and foremost, that the composition of SORB remains predominantly students. So currently, I believe the composition is students have the majority voice, and I think that our team stance would be that in order to, in part, adding on to what Sean and TK have already said, to keep orientation week student run, ensuring that SORB does stay a Senate committee and that students have a majority voice on that committee.
Thank you. Dan.
Hey teams. So you guys have had a couple of days now to read over, or at least browse each other's platforms. So after reading it and looking them over, which one idea from each of your other teams do you wish you had come up with, and why?
Starting with TK.
What a great question, Dan. Thank you. Thank you so much. And actually, a student asked us at the booth the other day, and one that they both kind of referenced, I believe, and I'm very sorry if I'm mistaken, but they both referenced different healthy eating habits and reviewing those, which kind of is something that we're quite interested in. We have several students approach our booth who said, you know, I have this allergy or I'm diabetic and I'm not sure where I can eat on campus. And that is obviously a massive problem, and we're not providing the proper nutritional information to our students. While we do offer in different services some vegetarian options, we're not identifying what those are, and that's something important to look at, and possibly, again, looking at the different nutritional ideas that the other two had in their campaign. So that is something that we didn't have that I do believe is very important.
Mira.
Thank you very much, Daniel. So, very interesting question. I think that what I will say, something that's in another team's platform, in the GPP platform, is the course registration waiting list. And that's something that in my capacity as the Academic Affairs Commissioner, I heard repeatedly throughout the summer. Students were frustrated with registration, and if you're working a full-time job, you're not able to sit at your computer all day checking Solus repeatedly to add and drop courses, and it's just not realistic for all students to do that. So we do really like the idea in principle. However, after doing more research on that idea, we've learned that there would be more barriers to implementing it than I think GPP might realize, in that academic policies would have to be passed at faculty boards, and faculties would have to endorse altering really the fundamental aspect of their registration processes to allow for waiting lists to exist. This is something that seems simple on the outside, but we've been in discussions with the registrar's office and learned that it would actually be a lot more difficult to implement.
Sean.
All right, thank you. Well, I've definitely read through both platforms, and I do like them quite a bit. What I would say about GPP's platform is increasing peer support center hours to go from 2 p.m. till 2 a.m. I think that's a great idea, having more support available for students on campus. That's 12 hours in which students can get support if they need it, and that's something we would definitely do also if we got elected, because we really believe in the peer support center. As for Team JDL, I would definitely have to say their webmail ideas are great. I am super frustrated with webmail all the time. The capacity is like 100 megabytes, which is ridiculous. I don't 100% agree with going towards Google, but I do realize that we need to make a change.
Are there any other questions from the audience? Yes, Amanda.
Sorry. Hey, can we have a
Yes, rebuttal, TK.
Okay, I have 45 seconds, right?
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, just on the lines of our course registration waitlist idea, we did meet with the Dean of Arts and Science, Alicia McLean, as well as Hugh Horton, and the registrar's office with Joanne Brady. Joanne Brady expressed that it was definitely possible and it was something that they were more than willing to look at. And when we met with Alicia McLean and Hugh Horton, they expressed that it would actually be beneficial to them, that they were very, very interested in this idea, and that it would actually help them to have information on what courses students were waiting to get into, and then that way they could better provide it for students. So it is something that we have interest from faculty societies.
Thank you. Are there any other rebuttals? Amanda.
So my name is Amanda Judd, student at large. The University Marketing and Communications Office with the Office of Advancement is about to embark on a huge fundraising campaign for the university. What would you say should be the 3 most important priorities to be addressed by these university fundraising efforts?
Starting with Mira. Mira?
Yes. Thank you for the question. Definitely. So I think that 3 of the most important advancement priorities, one of them, fortunately, recently at the last assembly, we talked about it a little bit, student life being put on the advancement priorities, and I think that's really important given that the Queen's Center project was not seen through in prioritizing funding for student life on campus. I would also say athletics. Something that is in our platform is supporting athletics and recreation in their bids to become premier hosting facilities for premier sporting events, and I would say that those are advancement priorities.
Sean.
All right. Thanks for the question. In terms of the 3 most important, I kind of didn't quite catch what it was. The 3 most important. Can we repeat that part?
The 3 most important priorities for the fundraising efforts in the upcoming campaign from the Office of Advancement.
Okay. 3 priorities for fundraising. I think we definitely need to do some fundraising for athletics, like Mira said. That's always important to support our athletics here at Queen's, and I think the AMS does play a role in that. Though we don't really have too much of a say in what happens with athletics, we can definitely support them. Another thing that we could support through fundraising is definitely mental health. I think even helping to fundraise for the Peer Support Center, since it is an AMS service, would be a great idea because they could always use the extra money to work on their services, expand their services, possibly have more hours, things like that. The 3rd most important thing in terms of fundraising, I would have to say, would probably be fundraising for I'm not even sure. I think I'm going to stick with 2 for now, and I'm going to think about that, and I'll let you guys know later.
TK.
Thank you for the question, Amanda, but it's also a great question. So the 3 top priorities I would say for fundraising, I would also echo the mental health, so fundraising for HCDS so that we can bring in additional counselors and perhaps use that in terms of finding space. The second most important thing I would say is academic quality, so ensuring that we are fundraising in order to not lose our programs, to not lose the quality of having programs run online and the such. And for example, we have 75 profs in arts and science over the age of 62, so we need money to be replacing those professors because right now they currently don't have the money to be bringing them back in. And finally, my 3rd priority I would say is residence. We need to be looking at building a new residence like 4 years ago, and there is massive overcrowding in them, so that I would say is definitely a priority as well.
The next question comes from Gracie Goad.
Hi all, my name is Gracie Goad and I'm the current H&S Director with the AMS. I have a question for all 3 VPUA candidates. One of the most overused but undervalued phrases that's tossed around in the AMS is ride the divide. As UA, you will primarily be concerned with the government side. However, as a member of the 3-person executive, I believe that this is something that you should be able to answer. Can you name all of the corporate services and under which director portfolio they fall? And how will you, as the VPUA, ride the divide?
We'll split this question up. First, the candidates will answer the first part of the question to name the services and under which director they fall. Then candidates will provide a response to the second part of the question, which Gracie will reread. So starting with Sean.
All right, thanks for the question. I unfortunately do not know the answer to the first part of that question. I am external to the AMS. I really don't know. I've been researching the government side quite thoroughly, and Briar has been researching the corporate side. So unfortunately, right now I don't know that, but it's something I will learn in the future, obviously. Thank you.
TK.
So the first time is just to name them all and then the director that they follow?
Correct.
So the services are TAPS, Kogo, Stucons, Wacom. They fall under Gracie, which is hospitality and safety. Then we have PNCC, Tricolor, and they fall under Jeff, who is our retail services. And then finally under Dan, who is our media services director, we have CFRC, the Journal, QTV, and then YDS/Convocation Services.
Mira.
It's less exciting the second time around, but also under Gracie, the Hospitality and Safety Services Director, our Common Ground, TAPS. Oh wow, I do know all of these. Common Ground, TAPS, Stucons, and Wacom, of course. Under the Retail Services is the Publishing and Copy Center and Tricolor Outlet. Under Media Services is CFRC, Yearbook and Design Services/Convocation Services, QTV, and the Journal.
And Sean will also start with the second part of the question.
So the second part of my question was, how will you ride the divide as VPUA?
All right, thank you. I like that question more. Okay, so yeah, the way I would do that, you know, we are a team. We work together on everything. Even when we get into executive, we're going to work together. We're going to share ideas. If I have an idea about the corporate side, I'm obviously going to share it with Briar. If Briar has an idea about the government side, he's going to share it with me. We're going to work together to ride the divide.
TJ.
So riding the divide, I think that, again, I would echo also Sean said that obviously we are a team. We'll be making decisions together. Further, I would like to see more mixing in terms of just not the executive decisions. I think that the commissioners and the directors should work more closely together, with the directors being across the hall. I know it doesn't seem far, but it kind of is. And us being in the main AMS office, we don't interact as much as we should. And I think that there are decisions that we could be making together. And I think we should be encouraging our commissioners and our directors to look for projects that they could be doing together. I worked on several projects this year with other commissioners, but it didn't really cross my mind to work with a director. So as a VPUA, I would be encouraging my commissioners, what projects can you be doing with the services? How can you be helping them? And I think that's really important, as well as when we are participating in socials and stuff like that, having more mixtures as well. We tend to right now separate into corporate and government quite often. And I mean, part of it is logistics. We have a lot of volunteers, we have a lot of employees, but I think there are opportunities to make that mix happen more often so that we don't feel so separate.
Mira.
That's a really good question. I think that ultimately it comes down to fostering a work environment where, yes, there's a government side and a corporate side, but the AMS provides opportunities to students that all have value in their own way. And the work is different in nature, but it means something to everyone. And the work that people do on the corporate side and the work that people do on the government side all provide value to the student body as a whole. And if that isn't made clear, then it should be made clear more often. I think that as VPUA, working with my executive, keeping that sort of philosophy in mind and ensuring that all of our actions really do demonstrate that both sides of the society have value. And I think that there's some small ways that can be done. I think that training week is really important. You're welcoming new staff. I myself hadn't worked full-time for the AMS before this year, and you have the opportunity to welcome staff to an environment where that's just the norm. And we respect fundamentally that the society is here to provide opportunities for students and to enhance student life for everyone as a whole. And I think that being from the government side myself, working as the Academic Affairs Commissioner this year, little things, going out of your way to meet service directors and service managers, using services regularly, and understanding that the work that you do is different, but it means something, and we're all part of the Queen's community as a whole.
Hello, my name is Jillian. I'm the AMS Student Center Officer. So with my experience this year and last, it is my overwhelming impression that the very vast majority of clubs and club leaders either are not aware of or do not make a proactive effort to take advantage of their AMS resources. Rather than creating more resources for clubs, how will you motivate clubs and their leaders to more proactively engage with their AMS networking opportunities?
Starting with TK.
Excellent question, Jillian. We do have a lot of clubs, which is one of the greatest parts and also one of the biggest challenges in terms of communication. We have the second most clubs per capita in North America, just behind Harvard. So that's exciting, it's amazing, it's incredible, and I'm so glad so many students get out there and start clubs. But I really feel that there's a lack of communication, which is partially why students aren't informed of what resources are available. As I mentioned earlier, I chaired a club in my second year. I had no idea that I was part of the AMS. I really didn't know that there were resources, and I didn't know what was out there for me. And I think that something in our platform that we mentioned is changing up the structure of the deputies. So adding a third deputy, ensuring that those positions are utilized, and assigning each deputy a certain set of clubs, similarly as we do in commissions, except obviously they'll have quite a few clubs. But you're supporting a club in a different way than you do with a committee. And ensuring that those deputies are in consistent communication with the clubs, and that way they know they have one go-to person. Because I imagine being Craig Drager right now is probably overwhelming because he does have so many clubs under his portfolio. Is he here? I'm sorry. But with that many clubs coming to you with concerns and issues, it would be very difficult to properly give them the attention that they need. So assigning each deputy a set number and saying, these are your clubs, email them, meet with them when you can, work with them, I think will really increase that communication and hopefully make sure clubs know that they are part of the AMS, that those resources are there for them, and that we want to support them.
Mira.
Excellent. A lot of very good points so far. Something that we did as we were preparing our platform is we met with a number of club executives and we asked them, what has your experience been with the club's manager and the club's office this year, or club's manager this year? And what has your experience been with the AMS? What resources do you want that you don't know exist or that you wish existed? And what we heard loud and clear from club executives is that communication is key. And so we would also want to add deputies back to the portfolio. As a fun trivia, fun fact, Tristan used to be a club's deputy. And so in addition to adding deputies back to the portfolio, a few ideas came from club executives, which we were really excited about. One of those ideas from, I can't remember which club it was now, but having a networking night for club executives to meet each other and having to promote cross-club collaboration, I guess. And they were really excited about that idea. And in addition to that, we had a lot of feedback on the clubs conference, and a number of club executives suggested that it might make more sense to have club executives more intensely involved in the design of the clubs conference and having it be more of a club-led event in terms of, we are all, AMS ratified clubs. What do we want to see from the club's manager, and how do we share resources that we have together to enhance all of our experiences and what we can offer students at Queen's?
Scott.
What'd you say? Didn't sound like my name. All right. That's a great question. Thank you very much. Clubs are so important at Queen's. They're definitely vital to the Queen's experience. We have in our platform, we want to do user-friendly manuals in order to, start a club, to join a club. We want to make sure clubs are more visible on campus, that everybody knows what clubs are available. As a first year in my first term, I wanted to join a bunch of clubs. I found it very difficult to find information. I did join a few clubs already, and I plan to join more. What we can do with the clubs conference is we can introduce a mental health aspect to that, so that all club leaders are trained with mental health awareness, and they can definitely become mental health first responders on campus, which is super important. Also, what we were thinking about doing with the club conference is integrating a budgeting aspect that's more hands-on, so that clubs really know how to budget their club, and that way they can get club grants and make their clubs more visible on campus. I definitely agree also with what TK said about Craig Drager doing a lot of work this year. I've heard that as well, and I definitely commend him for it. I believe we do have to definitely bring back deputies underneath the club's manager. I think that's super important if we want to get clubs more recognition on campus. Another thing I'll say also is that, where was it? Give me 2 seconds. Oh, I was also going to say that I met with Steve Pariser, the current CAC, and he has been doing a lot of work for clubs this year, which is outside of his portfolio. He's been working super hard to make sure clubs get all the information they need and all the support they need. He mentioned to me that he had helped start over 100 clubs this year, in terms of giving them advice, giving them a little bit of guidance, and I think that's something that can definitely be done under the club's manager, and so that the CAC isn't overloaded. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that with the exception of one of you up there tonight, all of you are arts and science students. And if we look at our current AMS exec, our officers, our managers, even the staff and volunteers that work in our services and committees and so on, are predominantly arts and science students. So my question to you is, what will your team do to make the AMS more accessible to people from all faculties and not just from the Faculty of Arts and Science?
Mira.
Perfect question. Thank you so much. I think that something that we've talked about a lot something that I've talked a lot about with my teammates is outreach on campus and recruitment being two main points. So I think that something I'll say, I think that our team has done very well this year. The marketing, human resources, and communications officers worked very collaboratively to develop an outreach strategy for Orientation Week. And I think that there's opportunities to build on the strides that were made this year to do more to reach out to other faculty societies during Orientation Week. Moreover, our team is very committed to we think that the presence and the outreach that the AMS does during Orientation Week shouldn't stop once the week is over. And so we've included in our platform creating an outreach coordinator position who would be responsible for engaging with students more regularly and ensuring that the AMS has a presence on campus throughout the year. And that I think would be one way to more regularly engage with faculty societies and, students from different faculties is what I meant to say. And another thing we would look at is ensuring that opportunities in the AMS are accessible to students from different faculties in terms of time commitments. That's something that we heard a lot from students, obviously, is if you are in a different faculty other than arts and science, you might have a really intense course load and it might be really hard for you to take on opportunities. So creating flexible opportunities within the AMS so that those opportunities are available to more students.
Sean.
All right, thanks for the question. I agree with what Mira said right at the end there in terms of making things more flexible so that more students in different faculties can get involved. I also think we need to get more AMS info into acceptance packages that Queen's students get when they first apply to Queen's. I think that's super important, so that right when they first get that first letter from Queen's, they know what the AMS is, they know what it offers, and they know how to get involved. I think that would be super important and something that we could do in order to get more faculties, more students, and just a lot more people involved with the AMS.
TK.
Thank you for your question, Jeff. I think actually probably the very first thing that we need to do as an executive is sit down with members of other faculties and ask, why don't you apply for these positions? And a lot of people say there are more arts and science students, which is true, so your likelihood of having an arts and science student is a bit higher. But why aren't those students running for these positions right now? Why aren't I sitting up here with an engineer and a commerce student? What is making a barrier for those students to apply into the AMS? So I think that's the very first step that I would be taking. Further, obviously, I am running with a faculty society president and faculty society VP who do understand what it's like to interact, albeit of a large faculty, but interact with the AMS. We are full-time employees and we are being paid. We need to be supporting faculty society presidents who aren't in that position and their executive, working with them. We really need to be going to them and not waiting for them to come to us. On issues such as academics, for example, as VPUA, working with the Academic Affairs Commissioner, overseeing that, I'm an arts and science student. There's a good chance with the council we have currently and with our history that our ACC is also going to be an arts and science student. And we really need to be looking at it and saying, okay, how is this issue going to affect someone else? We need to have those meetings with faculty societies and students from other faculties asking, how do these issues affect you? What about me being an arts and science student is clouding my understanding of how you would feel about this? A great example is with the Fall Reading Week issue. I know that a lot of students in arts and science really did want a Fall Reading Week. However, I know the rector, Nick Francis, met with different faculties and they said, no, that wouldn't work for our faculty. We don't want that. And that's why we started looking for alternate ways to increase mental health awareness and decrease stress on campus. So that is a great example of why we can't just make blanket decisions and why we can't just advocate for things on behalf of arts and science students. So really making those connections with faculty society presidents, with their executives, and going and outreaching to various students in those faculties to get their feedback.
Mira. Do you have? Oh, sorry. I thought you. Thought she was motioning for a rebuttal. The next question is a question that was prepared by AMS Council. It reads, what do you believe constitute the core elements or features of an effective broader learning environment or out of classroom experience? Oh, sorry, I'm reading from the wrong one. One up. Describe the concept of a safe space and what you, as an executive, can do to proliferate safe spaces on campus. Starting with Mira.
Thank you so much for the question, AMS Council. I think that in discussing what it means to have a safe space and what a safe space is, we're really getting into a topic that's very related to equity issues and a commitment to social issues and understanding social issues. And I know that I speak for myself and my teammates in recognizing that what that means is it's an ongoing process, and it's a very personal process in terms of reflecting on yourself and your own identity and how what that means in the world that we live in. And so I think that in terms of creating a safe space, having that level of self-reflection is really important. And I know that it's something that we are committed to and recognize as being an ongoing process. I think that the Social Issues Commissioner is a huge resource in working to look at the internal culture of the AMS and creating safe spaces where students feel welcome and feel that they can participate and thrive being involved in the AMS. And I know that a lot of work actually has been done this year in creating anti-oppression training sessions that are tailored to different groups and different needs. And we would, as an executive, very much want to continue that tradition of ensuring that anti-oppression training sessions are widespread and that students engage in that sort of ongoing discussion throughout their involvement with the AMS.
Sean.
All right, thank you for the question. I definitely agree. We need to keep going with the anti-oppression trainings. I think those are very important. We also need to make sure that everyone on campus feels safe. And the way to do that is to make them feel like they're at home. Like it's a space where they can be happy, they can be healthy, they can feel involved, they can feel like they're part of the community. I think that's really important in terms of making people feel like it's a safe space here at Queen's. We also have a platform point that kind of fits into that as well. We want to make the Pearson Port Center more of a safe space. Right now it currently doesn't have soundproofing, so people can overhear conversations, and that doesn't really work for a safe space. If you want to have a confidential conversation with a counselor, you need to have the room soundproofed.
TK.
Thank you, AMS Council. Excellent question. So I'm going to start with what the concept of a safe space is, and then I'll go into a little bit how my team will ensure that we provide one. So a safe space is not a physical space, it is a concept. Safe spaces are not rooms. You cannot just leave a place and deem it necessarily a safe space. A safe space is dependent on the people in that room. Safe spacing refers to personal, emotional, and mental safety. Personal, that's not what I meant, but that counts. Physical is what I meant as well. So of course, physical, emotional, and mental safety. And it means that in that space, your identity isn't being challenged. It means that you can contribute safely and that you don't feel like you are being marginalized in that space because of who you are. For this team, obviously I have a strong background in equity work, and my teammates work very hard to make sure that they're learning and educating themselves well. The first step is recognizing our own privilege and our own positionality and how that will affect decisions that we make, and really learning where we need to be looking for feedback and input and outreaching to ensure that we are making the proper decisions. I would disagree slightly in terms of putting on to the Social Issues Commissioner. I think the Social Issues Commissioner is a good resource, but as the AMS, we need to be infusing equity and safe spacing into everything that we do. It needs to run through every decision that we make and every event that we hold. The SIC does do work and does do training, and obviously I'm a little biased, but I feel like it's pretty cool. But as an executive, it is our job to have a commitment to equity. It is not to tokenize the Social Issues Commissioner or to put it onto them. It is to really be an executive that recognizes how who we are affects our decision and reaches out to students who would have different perspectives and different experiences, and ensuring that we are providing safe spaces based on the feedback that we're receiving.
So I have a question here from Stephen Pariser, who's the Campus Activities Commissioner, who apologizes for not being here, but he's really loving the live stream. And that question is, what do you think about the intersection of alcohol and student events that is prominent across campus?
Starting with Sean.
Okay. I think alcohol, really, it is a part of a university experience. We can't deny that. It has been since universities started. It's definitely something we're never going to be able to get rid of, and it's something we shouldn't get rid of. But at the same time, we do have to make sure there are opportunities for people that don't want to drink. We want to make sure that they feel like they can get involved and they can, go out and have fun as well. I think GPP has a platform point about, getting an Elfies night that's, all ages. I think that's a great idea. I think that's one way to get involved, to get people involved that don't necessarily drink or can't drink or don't want to drink. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to make more opportunities for people that choose not to drink.
TK.
Thank you for the question, Stephen. So alcohol does intersect with a lot of events across campus, both AMS run and non-AMS run. And I do agree with Sean that it's something, it's not like we can say, no drinking, nor is that necessarily something that we want to say. When I talk about alcohol and events with people who are doing impression training with, I always say, don't make it the focus of your event. We can't be offering events that are just about drinking. We can't be offering socials that are just about drinking. Drinking is present in those spaces, and I understand that, but you need to be providing activities that aren't just about drinking. So when we have a social for one of our services, for example, it's not let's just drink all night. It's let's do something else, and perhaps some people will be drinking while they participate in that activity, and some people won't be, and ensuring that we're providing alternatives for people that don't. And yes, as Sean mentioned, thank you for the shout out, we are looking at the first year's Elfies night, at which there would be no alcohol, just to be clear, so that we are providing experiences for our underage students and students who don't drink to go to a club and enjoy that safely in one of our services. So again, I don't believe that it is something we are going to get rid of, nor should we necessarily try, but we do need to be providing those alternatives. And I also think a great step is now that we are talking about alcohol safety during orientation week training. I think that's a really good thing that we have recognized that it's something we need to be speaking to our first years about. My current understanding as well that Gales will be able to discuss with their frosh about alcohol, and we previously weren't. And I think that's a great step too, that when students in first year are coming to us with questions, that we are able to safely answer them, and that we are getting the training to safely answer those questions.
Mira.
Thank you very much. I think that what I'll add to what has already been said is that our team very strongly believes in taking a harm reduction approach, and we would advocate that student affairs would take that kind of approach as well. And so one aspect of that that the AMS could take a leadership role in is developing education initiatives that come from students, not from student affairs. So students talking to students about drinking. And I think that one thing that I really like that TK just said was running events where drinking is not the focus. It could be an aspect of what's happening, but it's not necessarily the focus of the event. And in terms of what we as an AMS executive would actually have control over, that's something that an executive could implement in terms of looking at internal culture and socials and events that happen internally within the AMS.
Okay, next question from the floor.
Hi everyone, my name is Mackenzie Dixon and I'm the Chair of Operations for Quessy, which is the corporation that operates the campus bookstore. As I'm sure you're all aware, we recently completed an academic planning process at Queen's, starting in January 2010 with the release of Principal Wolf's Where Next, and culminating with the approval of the final academic plan on November 22nd, 2011. Now, conveniently, Quessy today held its annual long-range planning meeting where we brought together faculty, students, publishers, and bookstore representatives, exploring options of today's e-textbooks and e-courseware, and making recommendations for the next generation. These tools will allow professors to do less with less, loading surface learning directly onto the student, freeing the professor for more individual discussions and for teaching higher-level concepts in class. Can you discuss your opinions toward a shift to online learning at Queen's, more specifically within first and second year, including where the costs of such a shift can and should be borne?
Beginning with TK.
Great question, Mackenzie, thank you. So online learning is a bit of a tricky business, and I think that it is something that is effective for some students, and it also can be a more accessible option for some students, which is extremely important. So it's never something I would say that we should not have, because it is offering that to students who do like it, who do need it. I know with working full-time, it's always really handy to be able to do my course at 2 a.m., and I've always enjoyed that. However, I think that it is a shift that perhaps we shouldn't be fully making. We need to make sure that we are maintaining our courses and keeping the quality of the in-person interactions. And it's not, like I said, I think that those options should always be there. But the real quality of sitting in a classroom, interacting with your professor, and ensuring that we're keeping those class sizes small, also very important, is a key factor to learning. And online learning is not going to be effective for all students. So it's not something that we could fully shift to or something that we should be even looking to. But it is, again, a valuable option for students in different circumstances.
Mira.
Thank you very much. So the academic plan, one of my favorite topics. I think that you bring up a really good point. So the academic planning process is over. Where do we go now? It took 1.5 years, and we're sort of glad that we survived it. But I think that looking at how is this plan actually going to be implemented, and certainly there are opportunities, I'll say commercial opportunities, in the sense that looking at what kind of materials do we provide, and how maybe this is an opportunity to think creatively about the learning materials that are provided. I would suggest, though, that my hope is that in implementing the academic plan, this is an opportunity to think critically about reassessing the culture of teaching and learning that happens here at Queen's. And I think that although there are opportunities with online learning and blended learning and all of that, and TK made a very good point that often online learning is a much more accessible option for students in different circumstances, whether you're a student in a rural area or a mature student with children. That's great, but I think it's also important to ensure that a switch to online learning, where it does happen, is always done first and foremost to increase quality and not to cut costs. And that would be my main concern and my main priority, and I know that my teammates feel very strongly about that as well.
Sean.
All right, so the academic plan. I'm just going to start by saying that in terms of the academic plan, I don't think it's really something we're going to be implementing per se. It's more of a guideline in terms of where the university can go next. It's not necessarily something that's going to be 100% implemented. Everything in the academic plan is going to happen. That's not going to happen. What I am going to say about e-texts and e-course note, courseware and that type of thing is it is a good idea in certain situations, but it has to be accessible to everyone. Not everyone has, an internet connection. Well, they should, but they don't. And not everyone has, a computer that they can use these e-resources on. That being said, there is some benefits to online learning. Online learning can promote discussion. If everybody can access it, you can, have constant discussion through online learning without being, in a person-to-person situation. The online discussions are great, but we do need to make sure that we don't lose personal interaction. I think that's a huge part of a university experience, is being able to, have those one-on-one experiences with your TAs and your professors. Be able to have that personal experience. If you're just sitting behind a computer screen at home, you're not really at university.
If anyone watching online would like to ask a question, you can do so by tweeting with the hashtag AMSVote, and I will read off your question.
As an executive of over 14,000 students, over the course of your term, no matter what you do, there will be students who disagree with you, with your actions and decisions. How will you make sure that criticism isn't swept aside, because they are part of your constituency too?
Starting with Mira.
Can you repeat the last half?
How will you make sure that criticism isn't swept aside?
It's a very interesting question. I think it's important to have a very strong executive, and as I know that my teammates and I, if we were elected, would look forward to building a very strong team and building strong relationships with other student leaders in the Queen's community. And I think that having those relationships in place enables a culture of consultation where you can work with other student representatives who are elected by students to represent them, and collaborating always in making decisions that could sometimes be controversial. That being said, a strong executive does need to make decisions that are controversial at times, based on principles that they believe are at the heart of what the Queen's community stands for, and what the AMS should stand for as well.
All right, I'm actually going to start with a quote from Winston Churchill on that one. It goes, criticism may not be agreeable, but it is necessary. It fulfills the same function as pain in the human body. It calls attention to an unhealthy state of things. I think criticism is super important, and it's something that should never be swept aside. We need to value criticism in everything we do. You know, we can't take criticism as an attack on us or an attack on what we're doing, but really look at it as something that we can work with. And obviously, if there's criticism, there's a problem. So that's something we've done in our campaign. If anybody is critical, we welcome it. We want you to write on the banner. If, you know, a lot of people, when we ask them a question, they say, oh, I want to say something, but it's a little bit critical of the AMS, or it's a little bit critical of Queens. We say, write it down. Like, that's very important, and I think criticism is necessary.
Thank you for your question, Tuba, and awesome quote, John. I really like that a lot. I think that this team has made a commitment to listening to criticism. When you step into these positions, you take on that responsibility. You say, I am ready to work to make decisions that sometimes aren't going to go over well, and you want to try and make the best choices that you can with the most consultation and the most feedback. But you also have to welcome the fact that students have the right to come into your office and basically tell you off for the decision that you've made. And I think that that is something we are ready for, that we have been committed to. Criticism does require the ability to be strong and take that, of course. And I think one of the best ways to do this is to meet with those who are critical of you. If we are making a decision and students don't like that, I want to sit down and talk with them and know why. I don't want to hide from it. I don't want to pretend that it's not there. I don't want to pretend that any decision that we're making is perfect. So I welcome that criticism, and I hope that with students who are critical of decisions we've made, students who are critical even now of our platform, come talk to us. I really want to know why. And perhaps there are solutions that we can be looking at are better, and perhaps they won't work out as well. But that is something you have to be prepared to take when you step into this position.
Hi, my name is Laura Stairs. I'm the director of the AMS Food Center. So though two of the team's platforms reference the Food Center directly, no member of any team chose to speak with me about what the Food Center needs or how it could be improved. So I would like to know, why do you value the Food Center, and how would you, as VPUA, support the work of the Food Center director and its volunteers?
Starting with Sean.
All right. Thank you for the question. That's great. The Food Center is super important. You know, a lot of students at Queens, they don't necessarily come from a wealthy financial background, or they don't have parents who can support them. I'm in that situation myself. I'm supporting myself here at Queens. I'm paying for my own education. And you know, it's not always easy to buy food. The Food Center provides those services for students in need. I don't think right now it's super visible, though. It needs more visibility on campus. More students need to be aware that it exists. We also talk about in our platform integrating the Food Center with the upcoming grocer. I think that would be super important in terms of having donation bins in the new grocer, and possibly even having the cashiers ask if students want to donate a little bit of money towards the Food Center. I think that will outweigh, you know, the new grocer, which is going to have some slightly higher costs because it is a service on campus. It's quite small and it offers delivery. But at the same time, if we integrate the two, then students have options. They can go to the grocer, or if they can't quite afford that, or if they're in a time of need where they don't quite have enough money at that time, they can go to the Food Center.
Thank you for your question, Laura. As Sean said, the Food Center is a very valued service on this campus, and one that is entirely necessary. And we do reference it slightly as in terms of a couple things we'd like to add to the Food Center to improve improve the range of what they provide. I think as VPUA, you really do have to understand what this service provides, and making sure that you're not doing that in a condescending way, and that you're approaching it with the proper attitude. I worked personally in the Food Center for the summer with Kieran Slobodan as part of my position as the Social Issues Commissioner, and I think that working firsthand in the center really gave me good understanding of how it works, and I think that the next steps are to work closely with yourself and the new Food Center director to ensure that there is a good transition, that there's a good transition for the next Social Issues Commissioner, and that there's a good transition between what the work that Kieran has done with the center and the next VPUA, so that can be continued, and the initiatives that you wanted to work on this year and the ideas that you had do continue for the coming year. So working again closely on the transition process and working to understand why we have the food center, why students need it, and really understanding the numbers and the work behind that.
Thank you. So I think the Food Center provides a service that, although it isn't as visible on campus, from my understanding, speaking with the Social Issues Commissioner, just sort of as colleagues in the VPUA currently, it does provide a service that means a lot to the students that do use it. And I think that two important aspects of the Food Center running effectively is having an anonymous service that is also non-judgmental, and that really requires having a director that values those two things. And I think that's been done very well in the past and presently, and is something that we'd like to continue in the future. I think that Sean touched on a very exciting opportunity that I think we would also explore, which is looking at potential collaborations with the grocery store. I know that the grocery store owner is very interested in developing initiatives that are very student-centered. So that would be very exciting. I also know that the Food Center had recently, I think this year, began the process of rebranding and marketing itself, and so we would want to support those initiatives. Something that didn't make it into our platform, which is a different spin on the question that you just asked. We're aware that the Food Center director has to purchase groceries on a regular basis, and this can be a pretty big financial burden sometimes. And the Food Center director doesn't have access to a credit card all the time, just the way the AMS credit cards do work. And so something that I think that opportunity should be accessible and welcoming to all students, and something we would really want to look into is supporting that position being accessible by looking into whether an account code could be set up or something like that at a grocery store, so that any student would be able to take that opportunity without having that being an issue.
All right, I've actually got a question for Team JDL. So your platform includes implementing something called Q College, a kind of extracurricular course sort of thing. And this is actually something that the AMS has tried before, unsuccessfully. So my question is, can you tell me why previous implementations of Q College failed? And two, can you tell me what you're going to do differently to ensure that it succeeds, provides value to students, and remains financially sound?
Mira will begin. Sean and TK also have the option to respond to this question. Mira.
I would love to. This is something we are very excited about. Not just because it's something that would be housed in the Academic Affairs Commission, but something that we've been talking to students, and students have been very excited about our commitment to providing opportunities to enhance the broader learning environment at Queen's by facilitating courses that aren't, a semester-long course. You could sort of take a photography class or a cooking class that would last an afternoon. It would be scheduled by students who understand that, you're not going to sign up for a class that's at 8 o'clock on any morning, really. And so this is something that we've been talking to students and getting such positive feedback about. So thank you very much for the question, Jeff. Right there. So you're right. Q College used to be, it was in a few different forms in the AMS. At one point, it was a committee under the Campus Activities Commission. My understanding is that it didn't really take off there because the committee chair structure didn't really have the time commitment or the resources necessary to get the project off the ground. Q College also then, interestingly and oddly, was a corporate service in 2002, 2003, around there. So it had a corporate service manager that had a full salary, and it just wasn't possible for Q College to recover the costs of that manager's salary. So we've come up, after doing all of that research, we've come up with a new model, because we do think that the idea of Q College is enhancing the broader learning environment at Queen's and providing opportunities for students to learn outside of the classroom. In our platform, our proposal is to put Q College under a deputy in the Academic Affairs Commission, and I know that being the commissioner now, there's definitely room for restructuring and reallocation of resources in the commission, so that would be possible. Since the service would be under a deputy, or the project would be under a deputy, you wouldn't have the issue of having to recover the costs of a manager's salary, because the deputy would receive an honorarium. And so that would really address a number of the financial concerns. And something else that we were really excited about in terms of taking this idea, which existed in the past, didn't really, oh no. Okay.
Would any other candidate like to respond?
Yes. All right. Well, I do think Q College is an interesting idea. I would love to be able to, you know, take cooking classes or art classes in the afternoons on campus, but I don't know if it's a feasible thing that could actually be implemented. I think another option we could explore is working with St. Lawrence College. I know the administration has been building ties with the college in the last few years, and I think maybe that could be an alternative option that would be much easier to implement in terms of, you know, sending students over to the St. Lawrence College to take some courses through them. That's something we could look into in the future, is working with them to kind of foster that communication and that relationship.
Yeah, so we also think Q College is an interesting idea, and our understanding of why it didn't work in the first place was in corporate services. Then in its first year it lost over $8,000. As well, it had very low interest in the classes except for two, which were bartending and American Sign Language, which were often quite full. However, it offered several other courses that just had too low attendance to have purpose in running them. And the interesting thing about that then is, for example, when you took bartending, the cost was $75 per student, and that's what they needed in order to cover the cost of the course and the supplies and that kind of stuff. So we are interested in knowing in terms of like help the cooking classes and that kind of stuff, where the money to cover the supply cost and that is coming in, and how we will cover those for students as well. But again, it's an interesting idea. We talk a little bit in our platform about our Committee for Creative Student Teaching and Learning, which is more teaching classes without the need of supplies and that kind of stuff, and it would be a volunteer student teaching other students. So kind of along the same lines, however, we operate out of the CAC, and the subjects include areas such as improv and other subjects that don't require cost or equipment.
Rebuttal, Mira.
Thank you for both of those sets of comments. On the issue of suggesting that we do this through St. Lawrence, the issue is distance and cost. Students don't want to travel to St. Lawrence, and they don't want to commit to a semester-long course, and they don't want to pay for a semester-long course. On the matter of students not being interested, I think it would be really unfortunate to discount the feedback that we've gotten from students who have said they're very interested in taking these classes, and they've been really excited about this idea when we've pitched it to them. On that matter of being interested, we would like to take this idea to the next level by having these courses appear on your co-curricular record, which would also be an incentive to encourage students to take these courses. And we've heard a lot of positive feedback, and we're really excited about it.
The last question for this half will come from Dave.
Hello. What is your team's strategy to improve the quality of student housing in the University District?
Starting with TK.
So thanks for the question, David. I think that a lot of the initiatives that you yourself have worked on this year are what need to be continued to improve the quality of housing in the University District. Obviously, with the rebranding of the Student Village as University District, these initiatives do need to be carried on to make sure that that does happen. And we discussed strategies ensuring that the SMART program is fully supported and does begin in September and work quite fully throughout the year to increase that quality and improve student housing. And also there is marketing to be done around how students feel about their houses in general. I think that with the beginning of the SMART program showing that as the AMS, we are committed to improving your housing. That will help students to also feel positive about their housing. Okay, the AMS is helping me, then I will also work to take care of the student housing area. So that's really important. We also discussed making the fact that it's University District more clear. I know that Dave had worked with Councillor Glover in terms of hopefully getting signage that would say the University District on it in the area. And Councillor Glover was not particularly fond of that idea. However, in meeting with Mayor Gerritsen, he actually suggested that idea to us before we brought it up. And so talking with the mayor and talking with Dave, there is the possibility of actually going and taking it to council instead of the councillor, and trying to reverse that decision and looking at putting up the signage. So that's also something really exciting to look at, because it will help with the marketing of the area and that campaign, so that students begin to change how they feel about the University District.
Mira.
Thank you for the question. So I think that there's a few things that I would like to talk about. First of all, we would obviously be very committed to continuing the efforts of yourself and past municipal affairs commissioners, to work on education about what kind of standards you should expect out of your house in terms of addressing student housing. What is realistic to accept, and what kind of tactics do landlords use to trick you into thinking that, you know, having a house with a hole in the wall is actually okay when it's not. So continuing education efforts. Another thing that, just to avoid being repetitive, something that we included in our platform is the fact that City Council passed a policy where currently you can have 2 garbage bags per house, and effective probably May or June, you'll only be able to have 1. And this is a different take on student housing, but really looking at cleanliness of the area and cleanliness of student houses. Our first priority would be to advocate that that policy would be changed. Unfortunately, if that wasn't possible, I'm not really sure updated where the issue is right now. We would be very committed to launching an education effort to inform students about these changes. I think the most likely outcome would be that students, if they're not aware of it, will still put out the same number of bags, won't pick up the garbage. It will sort of counteract all the work that has been done towards rebranding the university district, and so we're really interested in an education initiative on that topic.
Sean.
All right, thanks for the question. I think it's very important that we make students feel like they're part of the Kingston community. If they feel like they're part of the Kingston community, they're going to be more willing to keep the upkeep of the university district at a better standard. I also believe the SMART program is a great program that will help students in order to keep the university district clean, keep it safe, you know, keep the sidewalks iced and shoveled and that type of stuff. Also, another thing that the MAC has been doing, I think is a great initiative that could definitely help this, is the golden key instead of the golden cockroach. That's rewarding landlords for having a good house, not what am I trying to say? Not I can't even think of the word, but not making it negative, not punishing them for having a bad house. You know, if we're rewarding landlords for having a good house, then other landlords are also going to want to have a good, clean, safe house for their students as well.
So that concludes debate for the first half. We will resume in 10 minutes.
Oh my God, debating's intense. Was it good? Yeah.